Like the rest of you, I was excited to read about what was going to go on in day two of the Felipe Massa case. So I went to the BBC Sport website and nothing to see here. No updates on day two of the Massa Crashgate. Well, it's not even the actual case yet. We'll find out about that. They've updated us to how Jakes became the voice of F1. Well, just got to be down on your knees and willing to kiss the ring and not talk about Abu Dhabi 2021. Just be the gaslighting voice, exciting the kiddies, and that's how you get to be the voice of F1. To read about what was going on today in the court case, let's have a read through of this article here. Bernie Ecclestone, conspiracy under scrutiny in ongoing Felipe Massa court case. Racing News 365 was in. It's all right. I'm having to try and escape this this little thing that's blocking out the middle. I'm not accepting their cookies. Racing News 365 was in the Royal Courts of Justice for day two on a pre-trial hearing into Felipe Massa's case against F1, the FIA and Bernie Ecclestone. So what did I say? It's not even the trial. This is a pre-trial hearing for 3 days. And then the judge will direct the parties and tell them to go to do this and to do that and to cream more money to your legal representative, which DeMarco here, oh yeah, cha-ching, the expert there. We'll come back to him. Anyway, let's have a read what this journalist, this media company is saying. The conspiracy around Bernie Ecclestone's involvement in a cover-up over not investigating Nelson Piquet Jr.'s crash played an important part in the proceedings of Felipe Massa's High Court case on Thursday. Okay. On the second day of a 3-day pre-trial hearing at London's Court of Justice, the role and involvement of Ecclestone and then FIA President Max Mosley, who's dead now, in what became known as Crashgate was examined by Massa's lawyer Nick DeMarco KC in front of Mr. Justice J. Okay, let's get into this. Massa, once again in attendance at Court 73, is seeking around £64 million in damages and wants the right to be known as the rightful 2008 champion, but is not looking to overturn Lewis Hamilton's title. So you want to be known as the rightful champion, Felipe, and you want 64 million quid. Okay, that's ambitious, but let's understand your reasoning, shall we? As presented by your lawyer, addressing the conspiracy claim in Massa's case on Thursday afternoon, DeMarco spoke that Massa was only bringing the case against Ecclestone, Formula One Management (FOM) and the FIA now after the deliberate concealment of Ecclestone's knowledge that Piquet's crash in Singapore was deliberate. This is anchored around an interview Ecclestone gave to F1 Insider in 2023, claiming that he and Mosley knew during the 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix weekend of what happened, but decided to do nothing. So our legal expert here, Nick DeMarco, right? What's going on here, Nick? Let me explain this to you, Nick, of the King's Counsel, our legal expert. Okay, we're dealing with criminal fraud, Nick, not your area of speciality, is it? I mean, you're into football law, aren't you, Nick? Okay, and we're talking about fraud here. You've got the owner of the marketing rights is concealing sport fixing, and that constitutes fraud. Google it, mate. Ask the AI, because we know all these legal firms now, they make up their cases using the AI, don't we? Yeah, we've had several lawyers struck off for that sort of thing, Nick. Do your research, mate. Have a look in the Law Society Gazette or maybe Legal Futures. Okay, I have a look at them and see all of the corrupt lawyers that get struck off for misconduct. There's plenty of them, okay? We need to do the same for judges, but we have the Judicial Conduct Investigations Office who have a list of things that they can't investigate the judges for. But don't you worry your little heads about that. That's also a facade of an organisation. So, Nick, we're dealing with fraud. We're dealing with a billionaire, owner of the marketing rights, that has concealed sport fixing, okay? That constitutes a fraud, okay? That's criminal law, Nick, right? You've taken on a civil case here, Nick, for money, okay? You're looking to extort money, okay, to compensate somebody for their perceived loss. Now, was there a loss? Your client, Massa, feels aggrieved, feels that he has lost something. Okay, the reality is he didn't win it. Okay, he didn't accomplish the requirement to become the champion. So this request to be known as the champion, well, no, because you didn't achieve the criteria. Do you not understand that, Nick? Now, you see, being a football lawyer is slightly different to being a Formula One lawyer, Nick. You see, because Formula One is contested slightly differently. Okay, this is whereby you've got a sequence of events, and it's a multi-competitor event rather than just one team against another every match, right? This is multi-competitors at each event, and at each event all of those competitors compete. They seek to accumulate that, they seek to collect points at that event, and those points accumulate to a season-long total. Okay, now in that particular season, 2008, one of those events turned out to be fixed. Okay, one team cheated to become the winners of that event. Now, what do you do, Nick, when somebody cheats in sport? Because you are the expert, the excellent barrister, as it says on the screen. You're the expert in sport. If somebody cheats, what do you do? Okay. Now, let me explain this to you, Nick, 'cause I know you might struggle, because normally, ethics is not necessarily lawyers' strong point. So I'll explain it to you, Nick. You don't just cancel the sport, right? You don't just say, we're just going to scrap that one because somebody cheated, so we'll cancel the whole event. We'll void that one on to the next one. Now, why would you not do that, Nick? Okay, well, what we need to do now, we need to have a circle jerk of the learned lawyers and the judges and the academics, and we'll all have to sit down and validate one another and tell each other how learned they all are. Oh, yes, absolutely right. And use the language which sends everybody to sleep. Okay, because we can't talk straight, because we're lawyers and we have to gaslight and project ourselves to be more intelligent than everybody else. But I'll explain it to you, Nick, in simple terms. You see, if you just cancelled the event where somebody cheated, then what does that do? That leaves it open to manipulation, doesn't it? Right? Imagine, Nick, that you were a sportsman. You wouldn't know about this, but imagine it was you that was the competitor, right? And you were in a contest whereby it was done over the course of a season, like Formula One, somewhere in the region of 20 contests throughout the season, and you compete at each one of those 20 contests, and at each one of them you do your best. You try to finish as high as you can. You get points for where you finish in each one, and then those points accumulate and add to the season-long total. And if you get the highest season-long total, you win the overall competition. Yeah, you understand that? I've not lost you so far, Nick. Yeah, you understand that bit of sport? Good. So, one of them that you're competing in, all right, you're not doing very well, all right? You're not doing very well. You're not going to get that many points. Your main rival is winning it. They're going to get like the maximum amount of points that they can get from that event, but you're not doing very well. Now, you maybe have got a teammate. What if you get your teammate to cheat? What if you've got a second team, right? What if you get one of those to cheat, right, in that event? What if you've got you supply engines to another of the teams that's competing, and you just give them the instruction, right? One of you've got to cheat, right? Because what we need to do, we need to make sure that they cancel this. So somebody cheated, right? Somebody fixed some part of this result, which means this particular event is now cancelled. That's worked out well for you, hasn't it, Nick? That means your main rival, who was on course for the maximum points from that event, oh, they don't get any. And you, who wasn't on course for any, well, you're not going to get any either. But at least your main rival hasn't managed to make that gain over you. See, that opens it to manipulation, doesn't it, Nick? What does the law say about that? You know, legally, what version of law are we talking about now, Nick? Oh, it's complicated, isn't it, law? Which law has got jurisdiction over this, Nick? Oh, is it a grey area? Is it a loophole, Nick? Let me know what you think in the comment section, Nick. Or can we all simply identify that no, actually, if you had this notion of we'll just cancel that event, then that makes it susceptible to manipulation, doesn't it? You could be leading the championship going into the final round, okay? The risk being, if your rival finishes ahead of you, they beat you in the championship. Oh, let's just cheat. And that way this round gets scrapped. Oh, I win. See, Nick? See, it's open to manipulation. It's open to C-nuts, okay, using that to their advantage. So we don't make that rule, do we, Nick? What do we do when somebody cheats, Nick? Well, what we do, we disqualify the cheats and we impose a penalty. And that penalty is so severe that it deters anybody else from cheating. You make an example of them, Nick. Okay, and what you've done, if you cheat in a global event that is sold commercially to the world, people are purchasing a sporting contest. They're purchasing entertainment that is sold to them. Now, they are anticipating, they are purchasing valid sport, okay? A sporting contest played out in accordance with the rules and regulations of that sport. Valid sporting contest, Nick. When somebody cheats, when somebody manipulates the outcome, that's not valid sport. They are defrauding those people that have purchased that product. What form of law is that in, Nick? Is that your speciality, Nick? Or is that a different version of law? Has that got a different jurisdiction? Oh, is that international? Oh, nobody. Or is it simply the difference between right and wrong in the context of a given situation? Do all these apply, Nick? Let me know again what you think in the comments section. Nick DeMarco, our legal expert here, Nick. Yeah, just me. I mean, I'm thick as fuck. I haven't got a clue, Nick. I need your advice, but obviously you're not going to give that advice free of charge. You know, just to have an appointment with you will cost me thousands of pounds for your expertise, wouldn't it, Nick? Yes, absolutely, Nick. Yes, absolutely. So it's fraud, isn't it, Nick? That's a crime. That's criminal law. Okay, which can people who commit fraud can go to prison for committing fraud. When you commit fraud, you're also liable to pay damages to those who you've defrauded. Who has been defrauded? Everybody. Who did the defrauding? The people who perpetrated the fix. Who was that? That was Flavio Briatore and the other guy from the Renault team. They created a plot to fix a race so that their team could win it. Maybe to get positive publicity for ING Bank, who was their sponsor on their car at this showcase event of the season, the first ever night race where the eyes of the world were watching it. So they fixed it for them to appear victorious, for amazing publicity for Renault and ING. Okay, yeah, so they're the people that defrauded everybody, Nick. Okay, so what do you do in those circumstances, Nick? Having explained to you that you don't end the event. You don't just go, somebody cheated, so we cancel the event. No, what you do, you disqualify the cheats. Having disqualified the cheats, you take them out of that finishing order, and now you assign those positions to all those competitors who finished that validly, who didn't cheat. Now, where does Felipe come in that order when you remove Fernando Alonso? Let's have a look. Well, he finished 13th. So you take off Fernando Alonso here. Nico Rosberg becomes a winner with 10 points. Lewis Hamilton gets promoted to second position, which gives him an extra 2 points, up to 8. Felipe Massa down here in 13th place gets promoted to 12th place and still gets no points. How does that impact the World Championship? Well, Lewis Hamilton, let's have a look again. Here it is, Nick. Here it is. Let me just explain the sport to you, Nick. Here it is. Lewis Hamilton, he won that year's championship because he accumulated 98 points over the course of the season. And that is with being registered at third in Singapore, where he's actually second, the second valid finisher in that race. So he should get an extra 2 points, meaning he got 100 points for that season. And Felipe Massa still only got 97 points because he still didn't get any points from that race once you've disqualified Alonso. You can take 10 off Fernando Alonso, bringing him down to 51, which brings him down to here in the championships, drops him down to 7th in the championship. That's the way you do it, isn't it? Maybe actually you'd disqualify Fernando Alonso from the entire season and disqualify Renault from the entire season as well. Maybe you'd do that as a consequence. And maybe you'd ban Briatore and, is it Pat Simmons? You'd ban them for life. And maybe they'd go to prison because it's a criminal offence. Maybe that would happen, Nick. Let me know what you think in the comments section, Nick. But maybe you'd ask the UK Serious Fraud Office to investigate this, Nick. See if you know anything about that law. You know, getting the Fraud Office in the UK to investigate fraud. But they don't investigate fraud because they assess the economic impact of it. And because the sport, the show of Formula One employs over 8,000 people and it's worth a lot of money to the UK economy, they turn a blind eye to fraud, Nick. And also, Oracle, they supply a lot of the computing system to the UK government departments. So the UK government will tell the UK Serious Fraud Office to turn a blind eye to that fraud, Nick. And also then it highlights that the mind conditioning machine that obviously governments want to use to mind condition the masses, you know, just like the legal facade that we're all to believe is so complex and is done with such integrity, Nick, and you need to be such a mastermind like yourself to be able to understand it, don't you worry, little head. The mind conditioning media, they don't want to be exposed as being fraudulent and just giving us narrative rather than truth, Nick. So I know I'm going off a little bit here, Nick, and I hope you can follow me. Okay, only the learned will be able to understand this, Nick. All right. So let's get back to what's going on here. So Felipe Massa, let's go. What does he want again? What does Felipe want? He wants to be known as the rightful champion, okay? And it's anchored around an interview with Ecclestone because Ecclestone, when he got to the Brazilian Grand Prix, apparently at that Grand Prix weekend, he knew that Renault had cheated to fix that result here. For so this Singapore Grand Prix here, which happened 3 Grand Prix before, in this race here, the final race, apparently Ecclestone found out there, along with Max Mosley from the FIA, found, and that would also be Formula One management, whether they communicated it to Formula One management, because they're all lawyers as well. Go and have a look into Formula One management. They're all just lawyers, the CEOs of Formula One management, people who can construct an argument for somebody. They found out then, and they then covered it up. Is that your legal argument? Let's go back to this one. This one. No, this one. Okay. Let's get into this then. When questioned by Mr. Justice J. How Mr. Justice. These are the titles of the facade. You see, this is how we have to do legal, everybody. We have to have the stage. We have to have the set there to shatter the illusion of integrity, glittering prizes and endless compromises. That's the spirit. Anyway, so we have the courtroom setting to play this. So how did we start this? If there's a problem, you sit down and you go, what's your problem, Felipe? I want to be known as a world champion and I want 64 million. Well, why do you want that? Let's sit down and let's talk this through. No, the way we establish this is we have to have a courtroom and we have to have the grandeur of a man in a wig and a cape and some robes, and we have to have it all official, and you have to have somebody to speak for you, okay, and they will say some magic words, and then the opponent has someone who can speak for them, and they will say some magic words, and then the judge will decide on the mystique that is the law that nobody can understand, because it's so complicated and complex, and that's why you have to pay the lawyers so much to be able to understand it. And that's how we work out what to do in a situation where there's a bit of a problem. That's the legal game, everybody. But don't you worry your little heads about that. Let's have a look now. When questioned by Mr. Justice J, how Massa could be time barred from bringing his action, because obviously there's a time for justice, and if you're out of time, you don't get justice, for bringing his action against the parties in 2009, but could in 2025. DeMarco replied it was Ecclestone's 2023 interview which finally revealed the truth. After many years, the interview was the first time it became apparent to Mr. Massa that there had been a deliberate concealment of a conspiracy that was known, the KC replied. So, Massa's argument is the conspiracy to cheat became known. Yeah, we realised that. We got that in 2008, Crashgate, yeah, when it was announced, when, what's his name there, Piquet Jr. lost his contract at Renault, so he then outed them. Said, well, you made me crash on purpose. You're sacking me now. Now I'm going to tell everybody the truth. And that is you made me crash on purpose so that Alonso could win in Singapore. Yeah, we knew that in 2009, Felipe. Yeah? So who's now been gassing you up to say, yeah, we've got a case, Felipe. I'll take your money. I'll take your money, Felipe. I'll take this to court for you, Felipe. But it's going to cost you a few million. But yeah, absolutely, Felipe. You've got a good case here. Felipe had a head injury. You're taking advantage of a vulnerable person, Nick. Let me know what you think in the comment section, Nick. Anyway, let's have a look. The defendant, which is Bernie, billionaire Bernie, 95. He's forgotten now. Bernie doesn't know. He'll claim that he lacks the capacity now, being 95. The defendants are very eager to prevent the court from examining their serious wrongdoing. Oh, because that's fraud. That's a criminal offence, Nick. Should you be taking them down the criminal route to hold the perpetrators to account on criminal grounds, or are you just chasing the money, chasing the money? Yeah. What would justice be? Holding the perpetrators to account. But Nick here has gone into law, not to punish the criminals. No, no. He's gone chasing the money. That's fine. Anyway. The defendants are very eager to prevent the court from examining their serious wrongdoing, crimes. Yeah, the FIA owed a duty to other members to enforce its regulations. Yes, this is a fraudulent governing body. Tell us what you know about Abu Dhabi 2021, Nick, being the legal expert. Tell us about your mate that represents Manchester City, because you talk in another BBC article here, the godfather of PSR. You talk about Man City in this one with the BBC here, Nick. But your boy that was in the Mercedes appeal that also represented Man City in that case. Oh, he's the other legal expert. He's the other god of the law for football. Yeah. Yeah, he fraudulently presented in that steward's appeal in the aftermath of Abu Dhabi. Yeah, this was your King's Counsel barrister that Mercedes took into a steward's appeal in the aftermath of Abu Dhabi, where quite simply Mercedes were protesting to the governing body of the sport that the governing body had broken their own rules. That governing body appointed 4 stewards to deal with those kind of appeals, and those 4 stewards, rather than cross-reference what Mercedes was saying, that yes, indeed, the race director had acted in breach of those regulations, what those stewards did is they invited Red Bull in to ask what Red Bull thought about the situation in the comments section. And then they adjourned and sent Red Bull away for Red Bull to construct a counter-argument. And Red Bull countered that these regulations could be interpreted a different way, despite the fact that 199 Grand Prix had been contested and they hadn't been interpreted in that way prior to that. What's the law on that one, Nick? And also tell us, Nick, what the purpose of the unlapping procedure is for the safety car. And by interpreting that procedure any other way, what was the impact on the competitors in that race? Does that go against sporting fairness? And is that in breach of the FIA International Sporting Code, Nick? Because obviously you're the legal expert here, because you've got such knowledge and the godfather of law. What are you doing about that, Nick? Oh, will you only do something about that if you'll get paid for doing that, will you, Nick? Will you do that? Or what about, that's also criminal law, Nick? Maybe not your area of expertise. Yeah, people should be in prison for that. Do you know, Nick, that the mind conditioning machine, Martin Brundle, David Croft, were lying about what the rules are? All right, suggesting that it's possible to break the rules before they were even broken. Oh, that's suspicious, isn't it, Nick? Did you know that when Nicholas Latifi crashed, Nick, he was told it had to be this lap? Yeah, do you remember that, Nick? Do you remember afterwards, nobody could identify the problem. Nobody could identify that also Carlos Sainz in 3rd position in that race. The 5 cars were gotten out of the way of Max so that Max and Lewis could just be set off as 2 cars to race off for a win in a multi-competitor event where 3rd place was left behind 2 cars in between 2 lapped cars that were left there. So 3rd place wasn't able to challenge for those top 2 positions. Nobody was able to identify that in the mind conditioning machine, Nick. Do we see what the issues could be? Should we void that race, Nick? And if we should void that race, Nick, because of the governing body breaking its own rules to facilitate entertainment, a last lap shootout, when they knew that one competitor was significantly advantaged over the other, okay, and they set that off to set it up for Max Verstappen to win it. If we void that one, do we also void the Belgian parade of 2021, where no sport took place? Okay, their own regulations, the FIA's own regulations state that the race will be deemed to have started when the lead car crosses the start-finish line for the first time after the safety car has returned to the pits. That's their regulations, Nick. And that never happened. All they did is, it was raining, it wasn't safe to go racing, and so what they did, with the time running out, the FIA defrauded the globe by wheeling those cars out onto track, parading them round behind the safety car for a couple of laps, and then bringing them back into the pits. And they said, oh, you've all just now seen a race, and Max Verstappen won it. Max gets 12.5 points. Lewis gets 7.5 points. Move on already. We're not refunding. See, that's criminal fraud as well, Nick. Maybe not your area of expertise, Nick. But what would I know? What would I know? I'm just... I'm not there in the court, presenting in my wig and my gown and my. I'm just sat here in my living room in my wife front's, just making a video, just explaining a little bit for you, Nick. Let's carry on. Let's carry on. The defendants are very eager to prevent the court from examining their serious wrongdoing. Of course they are. Fraud, criminal activity. The FIA owed a duty to other members. They owe a duty to everybody. If you're the governing body, you have got a responsibility to everybody. You're the people that oversee the sport. Okay? You are overseeing a sport that is being marketed and sold to a global population. Okay, if you're overseeing something that is a contrivance where cheating is going on, if you're actively cheating, you're not fit for purpose. Okay, there are criminal laws. Maybe you don't know them, Nick, but there are criminal laws that can be applied to circumstances like that. Okay, because I know you've got one of your debates going, can laws be applied to sport? Okay, sport is something that takes place in life, and if something that takes place in life, criminality is conducted, then yes, laws apply to it, Nick. That's the way it works. But maybe the lawyers will have to have an argument over that, and maybe the judges will have to decide whether or not laws apply to sports, Nick. I've seen some of your bullshit. Nick. Anyway, let's have a look. Mr. Ecclestone's interview confirms this when he said the FIA had sufficient evidence to investigate the crash and should have done so then. All right, but you're not getting to any of the point, are you? The international sporting governing body whose purpose and reason is the international sporting governing body whose whole purpose and reason it has powers is to protect the integrity of the sport. Absolutely right there, Nick. What have you done about Abu Dhabi 2021, Nick? Or do you only do things when somebody's paying you? You know, which lawyer, which expert of the law, right, has taken these people to task? They've broken the law. Okay, which lawyer has done something? Oh, no, lawyers won't do anything unless somebody's paying them to do something. Yes, that's the way lawyers work, okay? Because I put the information out there. Okay, I've been putting the information out there about the fraud. I've been putting the evidence out there about the fraud. Nobody's picked up on it, have they? Oh, no. You could have easily done this, Nick. You know where there's blame, there's a claim. You know, for example, Nick. Okay, maybe not your expertise in law. Do you remember the PPI scandal where the banks, right, and lenders defrauded people by mis-selling them something, payment protection, yeah. So that's fraud, okay, because you've mis-sold something, and they then were taken to court and were made to pay people compensation, yeah, because that's a crime. Is that a crime? We'll have to decide whether it's a crime. Yeah, it's a crime, Nick. You know this Dieselgate scandal, Nick, where car manufacturers defrauded people by lying about the emissions of their cars, lying to people. Well, apparently now, okay, according to the law, or so the media is reporting this, you can claim off those car manufacturers for the fact that they lied. Now, Nick, now, what the lawyers don't seem to actually understand here, okay, what the law seems to have missed out on this is who was the impacted party? Well, the impacted party is the taxpayer in that incident, and the reason it's the taxpayer here in the UK especially is that we get taxed. The road tax we have to pay every year on the car that we own is determined by the emissions of that car. And if the manufacturers lied about that emissions, that meant that you paid less on your annual road tax. So actually, if you bought one of those cars where the manufacturer lied about the emissions, you were actually you were better off, because you actually got away with paying less tax than that car should have been paying. So who was defrauded? Who lost out in that deal? The people, well, who lost out was the government collecting the taxation money according to their rules, which are bullshit rules anyway, okay? Because actually the manufacturer's quoted figures on car emissions are bullshit, because the amount of emissions given out by a car are highly dependent on the manner in which that car is driven, not just a figure given out by a lab-driven experiment. So two cars with the same CO2 manufacturer's figure, well, those cars could be driven by two different people and emit far more CO2, one more than the other, depending on the way it's driven, but you still get taxed the same. Is there a better way of doing it? Of course there is. Load that onto the cost of fuel. Then you might drive a little bit differently. Funny that, but don't you worry your little heads. This is the bullshit that conditions the masses' mind, and people don't fucking think, and therefore they can be exploited by people that gaslight them to tell them how magnificent the emperor's new clothes are. But anyway, we're talking about Dieselgate fraud, but who can claim the compensation? The person that bought the car got lied to, yeah, they got lied to, but actually got benefited because they didn't pay as much road tax as the government would have otherwise charged them. But now you can get some compensation. Woo! So anybody that's been defrauded, such as anybody that bought tickets to one of these Grand Prix, and the governing body defrauds you by manipulating the outcomes, that the media companies are lying to you by manipulating what it is you're seeing and lying to you about, because they're all party to that fraud. Yeah, they've defrauded people. Where there's blame, there's a claim. Maybe you've got some colleagues here, Nick, at the Blackstone Chambers. You know, some of you chums in their wigs and their capes. Nick, go see if any of them are legal experts in the field of fraud, and therefore compensation. Nick, that could be quite lucrative for you, Nick. Okay. You can use my material, Nick. Okay, it's all on the YouTube channel. Hashtag fixed with F1XED. Exposing the truth about Abu Dhabi, Nick. Anyway, let's get back to this. DiMarco, who is also currently representing Alex Palou, or whatever his name is, in his case against McLaren. Multitasking, repeatedly stressed to Justice J that it was Ecclestone's 2023 interview that serves as the backbone for MASSA'S claim, as he also fiercely criticised Ecclestone and Mosley's handling of the 2009 World Motorsport Council's report into the crash. Yeah, they're not very good at their reports. I'll do the breakdown of the FIA report into the Abu Dhabi 2021 fix. You'll see that it is absolutely ridiculous and could be written better by a 12-year-old. Once Piquet Jr. had gone public with his allegations of crashing on purpose. Yeah, so we knew that. They did a report in 2009. So we did know back then. Yeah. Ecclestone reveals that they knew at the Brazilian Grand Prix. So what we're not getting here is the notion that, did Bernie Ecclestone know before it happened? If he knew before it happened, Ecclestone would be party to race fixing. Let's be clear about that. If Ecclestone and Max Mosley knew that Flavio Briatore and Pat Symonds were going to crash Piquet Jr. in that race to fix it for Alonso, and they just kept quiet, they are party to that conspiracy. If all that they knew was they found out after the event, and they found out 3 races later in Brazil, then they become aware of a fraud, but then covered it up or tried to cover it up to prevent the brand being damaged. That's still a fraud. Okay, you are still trying to protect the value of something by concealing criminality within it. That's harbouring criminals, isn't it? That's another area of law, criminal law, isn't it, Nick? Harbouring a criminal. Oh, does that apply to sport law, Nick? Oh, that's a debate for the lawyers, whether harbouring criminals in a sport constitutes any part of sports law. What form of law are we talking about? Oh, only the lawyers know. This is going to get expensive, isn't it, Nick? Or why is it civil law that's expensive? Why is criminal law not expensive? Lawyers can earn more money when they're not prosecuting criminals. They can earn more money when they're just taking cases to try and extract money out of other people. I understand now. I understand now, Nick. So you've gone for the lucrative option rather than the upholding justice kind of law, Nick. Thank you for that. That demonstrates more about you, Nick. Anyway, the people. I've gone too far, and now it's going to do this. The people who wrote the report. I've got to do this. Sorry. The people who wrote this report, Ecclestone and Mosley, knew they had sufficient evidence, but were worried about the consequences, so they covered it up, DeMarco added. He was cheated by Ecclestone and Mosley. There was nothing to make Mr. Massa aware that Mr. Ecclestone and Mr. Mosley had information to act when they had said the opposite. The hearing continues. So your point here, Nick, is that Bernie Ecclestone, from what I've just read, it appears that the point you're making, that you think is the case here, is that Ecclestone and Max Mosley found out about that Renault had cheated in Singapore. They found that out in Brazil 3 races later, right? Yeah, and then they tried to cover it up. Yeah, and so you think that means that Massa should now be champion? Doesn't work like that, Nick. Okay, because what you do, yes, they shouldn't. That they are criminally corrupt because they tried to conceal a crime. Yes, they're criminally corrupt. So that's you need to get your criminal barristers onto Ecclestone for that, and anybody else that was involved in it. Briatore and Pat Symonds, yeah, they should be going to prison for committing sport fraud, okay, and there should be compensation paid by the FIA to everybody who was defrauded by that sporting event. Yeah, there's a lot of money to be made there, Nick. All right. But in terms of sport, what was going on with the sport? Well, did the governing body of the sport break its own rules in terms of at that sporting event? Did that sporting event did anything happen at that sporting event that shouldn't have happened in terms of what was a cheat event, which was somebody crashing? Well, somebody crashing in a Formula One race is not unusual. Somebody crashing on purpose is what happened. All right. But there's nothing to say that you can't really differentiate, that you wouldn't deal with it differently. All right. You've got to assume that somebody has crashed, and you're not dealing with, oh, is that a deliberate crash or not? Because if it's a deliberate one, we deal with it one way. If it's not a deliberate one, we deal it with another. No, somebody has crashed. what did the FIA do? Well, they dealt with that situation in accordance with how they would deal with that situation. They have to deal with the safety aspect. They have to make it safe when you've got cars travelling around a circuit at 200 miles an hour and then all of a sudden they encounter a crash site. Shit, what are we going to do now? Safety car. Right, so the race director deployed the safety car. I think the rules and regulations were such that you couldn't immediately pit. When the teams could pit, they took advantage of the situation, which is what they do, which is standard practice. They brought their cars into the pit to perform their pit stop. What happened? Well, most of those teams, exactly what normally happens. They got refueled, they got some new tyres, they went back out onto track, and the race continues as normal. They're having this procedure carried out. What was different for Felipe Massa? Well, his own team fucked up. They said, off you go, Felipe, when they'd still got the refueling rig attached. Whose fault is that? Is that Bernie Ecclestone's fault? Is that Renault's fault? Is that the FIA's fault? No, that's Ferrari's fault. Yeah? Is he suing Ferrari? No, he's not suing Ferrari. So why does he expect to be known as the world champion of 2008 when his own team fucked up and fucked up his chances in that race? They released him. He sped off down the pit lane with the refueling rig attached. They then had to run after him. They had to try and yank the fueling rig out. He rejoined far down the field and then psychologically imploded, drove like a tool for the remainder of the race and didn't finish in the points. What is your case, Nick? Oh, your legal expertise. We'll try to find something to try to win a legal case on legalities of it, won't you? No, it's quite simple, Nick, you see. There is a crime. There is a fraud. Okay, there's a corrupt governing body. There's a corrupt marketing rights holder. Okay, and they're the people that need to be held to account for that. But in terms of the sport, what happened had to be treated as in an organic race. And if you then subsequently find out that somebody cheated, you just disqualify the cheats. Everybody else was just treating like that as if, okay, somebody's crashed. We see that often. How do we respond to this? Well, the FIA has deployed the safety car, as it does. What do we now do? Well, we use this as an opportunity to pit, which is what we do. That's what Ferrari did as well. Okay, what then happened? Oh, one team's now messed up. There was a Grand Prix where when there was probably several where cars pitted under a safety car, I believe, and the team has put the wheels on the car and not screwed one on properly, and as it's driven off, the wheels fallen off the car as it's driven down the pit lane. Shall we void that event because a car had crashed? And should we question whether that was an organic crash or not, or whether they crashed on purpose, and it was a result of them crashing that then ruined the race for the car whose wheel fell off? Or is that car's race ruined by the fact that his mechanic didn't screw his wheel on properly? Let me know what you think in the comment section, Nick. If the team made an error impacting the driver's chances in that race, then that's your problem, isn't it, Nick? And like I say, we can't have a legal precedent that all the legal scholars and academics have got to discuss and have a circle jerk about to affirm one another as all being so learned about this, because quite simply you can't impose this notion of if you get a cheating event then you cancel the event, because that opens it up to manipulation, doesn't it? When everybody else is competing and everybody else appears to be competing in the right manner, you don't have the men's 100-metre final and somebody's taken drugs and therefore is a cheat, and at the end of the race they might have won it. Oh, they've taken drugs. We've found out in the drug test they've taken drugs. What do we do now? We cancel the 100 metres. There was no 100 metres. No, there's still a winner, and that winner's the first clean athlete. If you understand that, if you're a sports lawyer, Nick, yeah, there's still a winner. Okay, you don't just void the whole competition because somebody cheated. And you don't just void the competition because the marketing rights, the people that own the money to sell the show, they don't want any bad publicity about it. so they'll try to conceal it. There's your problem, there's your fraud. But they just beg the question about Bernie Ecclestone. Was he able to sell the marketing rights by doing deals with these sponsors and promising them sponsors, don't you worry, I'll ensure that your brand gets a bit of success here to get some good publicity for your brand. You just pay me the money to be a sponsor of my show, and I'll make sure that your brand gets some good coverage. I'll sort it for you, says billionaire Bernie, in this manipulation that is Formula One. Anyway, looking forward to day 3 of the pre-trial hearing in this legal play that's played out on the legal stage with barristers from the chambers. Thank you for your time.